Thank you, Prime Minister. Carl Dinnan from ITV News. You have said in the past that Russia could attack NATO as soon as 2030. Can you, hand on heart, say that this plan has enough in it by 2030 to deter if we can and to fight if we must?
Yes, I can. That is because of the increase in defence spending that we put in place, announced last year, already in place, which was the single biggest sustained increase since the 1980s, and the fact that this defence investment plan builds on that. And it's not just the amount of money, it is also the capabilities. We've learnt a lot from Ukraine, actually also from Iran as well, about the capability that is needed in order to confront countries like Russia. That is exactly what's going on in Ukraine. So I am confident in that. I'm also confident because we're working more closely with our European allies on this. One of the arguments I've made repeatedly, if we're to be persuasive, to show a leadership role, to be a trusted ally, a country that is looked upon for leadership. And I believe we have built that, and that gives us the ability over the coming years to stand on that platform and work with our allies. That's why I was in Berlin last week with the E5 countries. It's why I'll be in NATO next week at the summit, working with all NATO members, and why I saw the Secretary-General yesterday, where we discussed this very thing. Thank you very much, Carl. Chris Mason from BBC News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. One of the authors of the Strategic Defence Review, General Sir Richard Barrons, has said we're not keeping up with our allies and we're certainly not keeping up with our enemies when it comes to defence spending. Is he wrong?
Look, what I would point to is this, that we inherited an armed forces that were hollowed out. We have already taken, before today, the decision to put in the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the 1980s. That's for 45 years. So that gives you a sense of the scale and the urgency that we brought to this in just 2 years. This defence investment plan is now on top of that, a further £15 billion, in particular looking at the capabilities that we need. The Strategic Defence Review was really important. There are further things we've learned. Wars are fought. Even these drones, I've been to Kyiv a number of times now, and each time I go, it is clear the capability is changing on a weekly and monthly basis. So we've put all of that thinking into this defence investment plan. Now, look, there will always be those that argue that even more should be spent, but I have to make the right judgments on the capability that I think is right for our country to meet the threats, not just of today, but of tomorrow. And that is what this defence investment plan does. And I think anyone sort of standing back and objectively would say this is a massive step forward if you take what we've already done, put the defence investment plan alongside it, and the fact that it's strategic. It's not just funding today's capability, but tomorrow's capability as well, combined with the work that we've done to work with other countries on this, because the only way forward is to make sure that all Europeans step up together, and that requires us as a country to show the leadership that has been shown over the last 2 years and to have the ability to galvanise and bring other countries together. It is no coincidence that the two coalitions that have been set up in the last 2 years have been British-led. The coalition in Ukraine, which I set up with President Macron, and now Germany is a key leader in it as well. And then the other coalition to deal with the response to the Iran conflict, again, UK leadership alongside French leadership. And across Europe and beyond, other countries are looking to us to show that leadership and that resolve, and that's what we've been able to do. Thank you.
Sky Sports. I wish it was. I wish it was. Thank you.
Sky News, Beth, not Sky Sports, but I'm sure you could do that as well.
Maybe one day. Thank you, Prime Minister Beth Rigby. From the beginning of your premiership, you have prioritised Britain's role on the world stage, but your defence plan is a year late. It cost you your defence secretary and has no timetable for meeting the new NATO commitment. By getting it across the line, you have made a start to your legacy on defence. but do you acknowledge that it will be your successor who will need to secure it? And has Andy Burnham given you assurances that he will increase defence funding in the next spending review? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Beth. Let me just put it in this way. I think a test of any Prime Minister is whether they leave the country in a better state than they found it. And if you look at our country, that is undoubtedly a case on the economy, undoubtedly a case on public services, in particular the NHS, but also undoubtedly the case on defence and security and international leadership. We are in a much better state now than we were when we took over 2 years ago. And that isn't just measured in the amount of money we're putting into defence, the record investment that went in as a result of the announcement I made last year, the addition to that today, but also the fact that other countries now look to the United Kingdom as a leader on defence and security. We're the first to be consulted. We are the country that others want to work with. And I'm proud of that. We do leave the country in a better state. As for the future, I have no doubt that all Labour governments will remain that number one commitment to our defence and security. Labour governments have always done that and always will do that. And I'm absolutely certain, therefore, that this is a platform on which whoever comes after me can build. And I'm proud that it is. And I will do everything within my power to make sure that any transition is orderly and that we go from strength to strength. And that is what I'm endeavouring to do. Thank you very much, Beth. Andy Bell from Channel 5.
Thank you very much, Andy Bell, 5 News. Just to return to that point, Prime Minister, can you be a bit more? Has he signed it off, or is this very much your plan and you're just telling him you should stick to it?
Well, Andy, the way I put it is this. I don't think anybody would argue that the Strategic Defence Review was needed because any Prime Minister would want to know what are the capabilities I have at my disposal now, what are the capabilities I'm going to need in the future. The Defence Investment Plan builds on that by setting out what those capabilities will be, how they're going to be costed. So that is something which any Labour Prime Minister would want to stand behind. It's a platform any Labour Prime Minister would want to stand on, because the first duty of any Prime Minister is the defence and security of the country, the first duty. What I will now do, and am doing, is to ensure that the transition to a new Prime Minister is orderly, with minimum disruption, and that there is a good, solid platform to build on. We've done that over the 2 years, and I shall faithfully do that in the remaining weeks, every day ensuring that we improve on the situation and that I can genuinely say, hand on heart, that I've passed on a better country than one I inherited, and that I can make sure that my successor has every prospect of success, which is what I want more than anything. Thank you very much, Andy. I've got Paul McNamara from Channel 4, please.
Morning, Prime Minister. You keep on coming back to the line that you've increased defence spending by the largest amounts since the Cold War, and nobody's disputing that. But what former military chiefs and experts are arguing is that even with that, and even with the extra money, given the threats that the UK faces right now, it is still not enough, including General Sir Richard Barrons, who you entrusted to write last year's defence review. Are you willfully ignoring their advice, or do you just think these people with decades of war fighting experience are wrong?
Well, I'm glad you begun that by saying everyone acknowledges the huge increase we've put into defence spending, because it is important that we start there. The highest sustained increase since the Cold War or since the 1980s, depending which way you want to measure it, that's nearly half a century. The biggest sustained increase for nearly half a century in the history of this country. That is a huge step forward, £270 billion over the spending review. With today's defence investment plan, that means that over the next 4 years, that will take it to a record 300 or nearly 300 billion pounds. That is a huge amount of money. What we've done through the strategic review and the defence investment plan, which, as I say, has been sharpened even in recent weeks. And I'm very grateful to the Defence Secretary for all the work that he has done, the Chief of Defence Staff as well, alongside the Chancellor, to sharpen it, to make sure that, in a fast-moving world, it really is going to deliver the capability that we need for the future. And that is what it does. That is my judgment call on this. Of course, I hugely respect those with great experience and great service. There will always be those that say, whatever the sum is, frankly, it's not enough. Whatever sum I'd announced this morning, there would always be somebody who says that's not enough. I have a job as Prime Minister to get this judgment right in terms of the amount of money that is spent, the capability that we need as a country, and that is why I'm 100% confident in the plan that we've put forward this morning. I'm very pleased at the work that's been done in recent weeks to sharpen and strengthen this plan so it can be presented in the way it's been presented today. Thank you very much, Paul. I've got Tom Sables from BFBS, Forces News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Tom Sables, BFBS Forces News. As a Labour Prime Minister, you pledged £9 billion to upgrade 90% of military housing. Given that now there's reports that that money is being moved to fund the DIP, what's your message to military personnel living in substandard accommodation after your promises?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. Firstly, let me start by saying we have put a lot of money. We did that. Alongside that, we have awarded 3 pay awards now, pay increases of above inflation. And again, I'm really proud that was the right thing to do because it affects the morale, retention rates, and reflects the service that is given to this country by those that serve us. We will continue to do that. Of course, I have to balance that against investment in the military capability that we need, but proud that we made those. We made it to reflect what we know our armed services give to our country, of which we are very thankful and very proud. Thank you very much, Tom. I've got Sophie Huskerton from the Daily Mirror. Sophie.
Hi, thank you, Prime Minister. So Andy Burnham has said he wants to stop departments spending too much time battling the Treasury instead of getting things done. The delay of your defence investment plan seemed like there was a bit of battling between the MOD and the Treasury. So what's your advice on Andy Burnham on this?
Well, let me just say a word or two about the Treasury and about this Chancellor, if I may, because we inherited an economy that was broken. And there's no doubting that. Nobody argues about that. And this Chancellor put it on a stable footing. And you saw that in the figures earlier this year that were set out in the spring statement. They spoke for themselves. And you can see it every day because what I see and what the Chancellor sees are the numbers that give us an indication of the impact of the conflict in Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz on our country. The impact on our country, and less than it otherwise would have been, because our economy is stabilised. Look at the inflation rates across Europe. Look at our growth projected rates across Europe. So that is the work that this Chancellor has done, and I'm very proud of Rachel in relation to that. To have stabilised our economy in 2 short years after what we picked up means that I can depart the stage, because it's the end of my journey, it's not the end of anybody else's, but I depart knowing that we have left this country in a better state than we got it. Are there wranglings between departments and the Treasury? Yes, of course there are. There always have been, always will be, because at the end of the day, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have to look at the overall judgments for the government, the overall affordability, and prioritise between different things. Departments, of course, will put forward, in good faith, the commitments they think we should make. I understand that. But what we have to do is judge them against what we can afford, what the priorities of the country are. That's what we've done for 2 years. I'm really pleased that as a result of those judgments, our economy is stable and in a better place. That impacts people across the country hugely. That our public services are improving, particularly our NHS. And we're able today to announce this further investment in our defence and security. And I'm very proud of the fact, Rachel referenced that she went to Kyiv yesterday, that the standing of the United Kingdom in the world is in a much better place than it was 2 years ago. And I don't think anybody would really dispute that on defence and security and many other issues. Thank you very much. I've got Dan Martin from the Daily Telegraph. Dan.
Thank you, Prime Minister. How can you present this defence investment plan at the NATO summit when you're Prime Minister in name only? And also, Donald Trump wants you to meet this 5% target of GDP by 2035. Do you think that's possible for the UK? And what will you tell him at the summit?
I spoke to President Trump just 2 weeks ago when we were at the G7 together at great length about a number of issues, particularly the conflicts in Ukraine and the conflicts in Iran. And actually a very strong statement on Ukraine was put out from the G7, as you will have seen, showing the unity of that group of countries. This is additional investment today on top of the highest sustained increase since the Cold War, since the 1980s. I talked through Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, talked him through this yesterday, talked to him very frequently on the phone as well as in person, have a very good relationship with him. He is very welcoming of what we are doing here today because he knows what a contribution it makes to NATO. He also appreciates, and we must never lose sight of this, of the huge contribution that the UK makes to NATO, not just as a leading advocate, a member of NATO, but of course we confirm our nuclear capability to NATO, which is an incredible capability, which keeps us and the whole of NATO countries safe. And I'm very proud that we do that. So I'm proud of that work. I'm glad on the 5% commitment by 2035. Today takes us to 4.2%. Towards that target. I will be very pleased to report that back to colleagues at NATO next week. They will be very pleased to discuss this with us, and I'm proud of the record I stand on in relation to defence and security as I go into that summit. Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues.